Back on the SportsMax zone, and we're going to start here with cricket. West Indies bowling, where the bowlers were made to toil on day one of the first test against the Aussies at the Perth Stadium after winning the toss and electing to bat. Australia compiled 293 for 2 from the 90 over day. The 4 stumps were drawn. Marnus Labuschagne ended the day on 154 not out. Cal Mears and Jaden Seals taking a wicket apiece for the West Indies. Now, speaking at stumps, West Indies head coach Phil Simmons defended his bowlers. He said, "We bowled well, especially in the first 2 sessions, but the luck didn't go our way. It was just one of those days. We bowled well in spurts. The first 2 sessions were good because we didn't let them get away. I think the last session, a few too many runs leaked makes the day look bad, but I think the first 2 sessions were good." Our cricket correspondent is international commentator Fazir Mohammed, recapping the opening day's play. Faz, are you in agreement with coach Phil Simmons that the bowling for at least the first session or the first 2 sessions reasonably good, but the bowlers were unlucky?
Unlucky to an extent because a couple of half chances were missed, and then towards the end, Tejnarayan Chanderpaul, the debutant, missed a catch offered by Labuschagne as well. And I certainly take on board the point made by Phil Simmons, and we have to be mindful as well that you're talking about players who are not familiar with Australian conditions, the heat as well. It's hotter in Perth than it is in the Caribbean. But cricket, at least Test cricket, is played over 3 sessions, not 2. So if you lose momentum, if you run out of gas on a 3rd session, which happens very often when we're talking about the West Indies against tough opposition in Test match cricket, it speaks to a bigger issue, whether it's about match fitness, whether it's about mental fitness, whether it's about fatigue, whether it's about frustration. The fact is that this happens quite regularly for the West Indies. So yes, the West Indies might have had going tough as far as a few opportunities that didn't go their way. But let's look at the common element. The last time the West Indies were in Australia, 2015, 3 Test matches were scheduled. One was completely ruined by rain. At the end of the first day of the first Test match in Hobart, Australia were 438 for 3. At the end of the first day of the second Test match in Melbourne, Australia were 390 odd for 3, 353 for 3, excuse me. So there's a common thread there. So just simply saying that, it's an issue of maybe a couple of tough opportunities didn't go our way, and we played well for 2 sessions but didn't in the 3rd. Again, Test cricket is not played in 2 sessions on a day.
Yeah, Faz, when we were previewing yesterday, you did suggest that you thought if the Aussies won the toss, they would have batted, even though in the reverse, you thought if the West Indies won the toss, they would have inserted the Aussies, and the Aussies did exactly what you thought they would.
Yeah, and it requires no perceptiveness in that regard, because that's what they do all the time, unless it happens to be a real minefield where the bowlers are going to dominate completely. Their philosophy is, we bat first. Whatever the conditions, they feel they're going to get the best of the conditions. Batting first, if you survive the first hour, they would have been a bit uneasy when David Warner fell cheaply to Jaden Seals. But from then on, it was all Australia. And yes, credit to the West Indies for keeping things tight enough that the West Indies really felt that a wicket here, a wicket there. We saw a couple of outside edges actually dropping short of the slips, which I didn't expect at all. And again, listening to the commentators, which include Brian Lara for the first time, who presented a test cap to Tejnarayan Chanderpaul, the feeling is that the pitch is going to get drier and faster. So that is going to be the challenge for the West Indies tonight going into day 2. Can they pick up some early wickets, or will Australia run away, as they invariably do, to a total closer to the 500 mark and leave the West Indies battling to avoid an innings defeat over the latter stages?
Yeah, Faz, and you just mentioned, the approach of, trying to grab those quick wickets as soon as possible. But based on what you saw from the bowling of the West Indies last night, do you think that they have it in them, to get those quick wickets when we get to the crease today?
Yes, they do. Because again, for those first 2 sessions, it wasn't really a case of the Australians dominating as far as scoring quickly, which is what they like to do. Whether you're talking about Khawaja, whether you're talking about Labuschagne, whether you're talking about Steve Smith, who's rebuilt his game and regained confidence, and this innings will help him, they like to dominate. And the West Indies bowlers didn't really allow that. And again, credit to them. Jaden Seals picked up a wicket. Of course, Kyle Mayers, who's always likely to get a wicket with the way that he bowls. The disappointment would have been Roston Chase. He was way too expensive for a finger spinner. If you're talking about a wrist spinner, you would expect the odd loose delivery. But for a finger spinner, you would have expected nothing else that he's online. And that really allowed the Aussies to get away in those first two sessions. And then, again, with that final session, it was once more that situation where the West Indies just seemed to lose focus. They seem to miss opportunities. The bowling isn't as tight as it should be. And it really begs that question about the levels of mental and physical fitness and readiness for Test cricket. But yes, if you're talking about the start of play tonight for the second day, if the West Indies are up for it, the second new ball is just 8 overs old, they have every chance, if they bowl properly, to get into that middle order of Australia.
Yeah, Faz, and with Test cricket being such a long game, sometimes you spoke about the mental capacity, right? Do you feel as if when Jaden Seals got that first wicket, we didn't capitalize on the happiness and the momentum, because it gives you this sort of vibe when you get that breakthrough so early, you feel as if, it took us too long to get the next wicket?
Well, you've got to recognize that you're bowling against quality opposition. This is not Bangladesh. This is not a team that can be easily unsettled by quality fast bowling. You have players in Khawaja and Labuschagne who are well equipped to deal with any challenge presented to them. And you'd see them play with soft hands, so the outside edge wouldn't carry to the slips, because they're mindful of what happens at Perth Stadium. If it were the WAC, I might have carried the slip. But again, it's a fast pitch as well. And therefore, the West Indies bowlers would have kept on trying. I don't think there's any question of them losing their focus through those first couple of sessions. They bowled as well as they could, but you're talking about quality players who average in the 40s, in the 50s, and one or two of them over 50. And that is unheard of in the modern environment of West Indies Test cricket. So yes, when you're talking about our bowlers, they'll be coming up against players of a caliber and of a hunger for Test match runs that they wouldn't come up against very often.
Yeah, Faz, of course, this match being shown live on SportsMax nightly. We just saw some shots there from Labuschagne. Can you talk to me quickly, Faz, about how good do you think he is? Back-to-back hundreds now. The last Test match he played, he scored 100 against the Sri Lankans in Galle. He's currently number 2 in the world behind Joe Root. How good is Marnus Labuschagne?
He is outstanding. He is functional rather than flashy. I don't want to see Marnus Labuschagne bat because there's nothing particularly attractive about him. But he's built his game around a very solid foundation. And more than anything else, I think Narayan Chandapal and every West Indian batsman should be looking carefully at how he builds an innings, Steve Smith and company. And his numbers speak for itself. Having taken his opportunity to Steve Smith's injury in the Ashes of 2019, he's never looked back. And he's continuously improved his game with the advice of his batting coach, who works personally with him. And again, that's a lesson about not being complacent, but continuing to work on your game, because there will always be challenges. He's obviously world-class, even if he's not the most attractive.
Yeah, his 3 innings in the Perth Stadium there, Faz, 143, 50 and now 154 not out. A quick comment on Craig Brathwaite's use of his bowlers, because there was some question about Kyle Mayers bowling 11 overs, the least of all the bowlers except Craig Brathwaite, who put 1 over in, and his economy rate was second only to Jason Holder. And of course, he was a wicket taker. Do you think Kyle Mayers should have bowled more, or is it that he didn't look threatening to the captain?
I think Kyle Mayers is always that bit of a threat, not just because he took 5 wickets against England and Grenada to win a Test match and a series, but the way he bowls. And I was listening to the commentators, Kerry O'Keefe, the former Australian leg spinner, who had seen Kyle Mayers bowl previously, suggested that he should have come on, maybe even as first change, because he offers you just that bit. And look at that delivery that's got the wicket. It's virtually unplayable. Not unplayable because it was lightning quick, but he had to push out at Khawaja, well set on 65, seamed away and got the edge. And that's the sort of challenge that Kyle Mayers will give you. And I think really he needs to be used more often, whether it's an issue of maybe that lingering ankle injury that required surgery, maybe that may not be that at all. And maybe for Brathwaite, it's about using his frontline bowlers. But if you've got someone like a Kyle Mayers who could probably bowl first ball tonight, and with that ability to wobble the ball and his disciplines, he's just as likely as anyone else to get you the breakthrough. Yeah,
Faz, you just referenced Brian Lara, the West Indies great, handing Tagenarine Chanderpaul his debut cap. Your quick thoughts on that, and maybe an opinion on how BC Lara did behind the mic in the comm-box.
Well, as someone who would have had to face my first time in that as well, it's an unnerving experience, and you can tell he's feeling his way around. But as the class player that he is, you'll get the sense that he'll walk into the role eventually. For Tagenarine Chanderpaul, what more do you want to receive your Test cap from arguably one of the greatest batsmen the West Indies would have had? What I find interesting as well is that isn't Brian Lara supposed to be part of a 3-member committee to report on the West Indies' performance at the World T20, with a report due to be handed in on the 15th of December. If the second Test match goes to the duration, that finishes on the 12th of December. And I know there's internet and social media and all that can be done online.
Zoom or Skype, yes.
Yeah, or vice versa, via Skype.
Right now you're on Zoom with us, Paz, and you're being very effective.
I hope I am. But indeed, let's hope that Lara will have the time to really make a meaningful contribution to that examination of such a poor performance.
Yeah, so 293 for 2 then, the Aussies in a strong position for sure. A big opening day for them. What needs to happen for the West Indies before lunch on day 2?
Obviously, Lance, early wickets. The West Indies have to pick up at least 3 wickets in that session, and even then you would think that Australia have the requisite quality to get up towards 400, and that's where the challenge comes in. Anything beyond 400, 450, the West Indies are battling for survival. It will require a remarkable batting effort from the West Indies because of the conditions, because of the pitch, because of the quality of the opposition, because already the Aussies are in danger of taking the match away from the West Indies. Anything less than early wickets tonight in that first session, 3 wickets, maybe 4, and Australia will be going away with this match.
Yeah, obvious concern about the West Indies batting potency, Faz. So given what you saw from the pitch and how it played on the opening day, how confident are you that the West Indies batsmen can flourish, or let's not even be over ambitious to say flourish, but hold their own in the conditions there?
I can't butter it up. I'm not confident at all. Because even if the pitch were to be exactly as it was on the first day, yeah, and from what we hear and from what we listen to, it's going to get even faster on the second and third days, I think the West Indies will struggle because so many of our players have limitations in their technique. And you've got to, when you look at the combination of the Australian bowling attack, the pace and the swing of Mitchell Starc, the unerring accuracy of a Josh Hazlewood, Pat Cummins, the captain, who gives you so many varieties as a fast bowler. And after all of that, you've got Nathan Lyon with his off-spin, who is really a nagging type bowler, who's very clever, over 400 Test wickets. I think any which way you look at it, even if there's a really phenomenal innings by one of the West Indies batsmen, it really is going to be a difficult challenge. And I struggle to see, quite honestly, how the West Indies are going to cope successfully.
Okay, so one of our voice note contributors, Faz, yesterday labelled Kyle Mayers the double century man. So let's hope that Kyle Mayers can perform in that way.
Well, if he does, it's going to be one of the most spectacular double hundreds in Perth, probably in line with Roy Frederick's phenomenal 169.
That's right.
In 75-76.
Okay, Faz, we'll talk again soon, I'm sure.
Take care.
Yeah, day 2 action tonight, starting at 9:20, 10:20 Eastern Caribbean time. Day 2, Australia against the West Indies at the Perth Stadium.